Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. The Browns will kick things off with the Steelers Monday Night Football in about 4 hours. But unfortunately for Browns fans, it is a game that has no bearing whatsoever on the playoffs for the Browns. The Browns were eliminated from the NFL playoffs yesterday with the Bengals beating the Chiefs. The Browns were eliminated from the AFC North. And then when the Broncos lost to the Chargers, the Browns were eliminated from the AFC wild card. This was a tweet from CBS Sports as the Browns eliminated from the playoffs. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM News Radio 1100 106.9 FM. D-Man, some people did not like that tweet. I'm kind of like, there's no good way to tell me that the Browns are not in the playoffs. There is no good tweet to do that, but I get the point.
Dave, CBS made sure that it hurt, okay? They had the puffy Baker with the porn stash. They had OBJ on there. I mean, the list of quarterbacks, the quarterback jerseys. So CBS definitely went out of its way to make us hurt even worse than we did. But yeah, yesterday was such a downer. I'm still not over it. As somebody, lifelong Browns fan, I invest a lot of time and energy into every Browns season. To have it end the way it did yesterday, when it looked like the Kansas City Chiefs were going to score 100 points against the Bengals, and they wind up scoring 3 in the second half and blowing that 28-17 lead. And so disappointed in the Kansas City Chiefs. Not that they care. But, yeah, once the North was gone, then you wait on the Chargers, and you knew the Chargers were going to house the Broncos, which is exactly what they did, and that was the final nail. But you know what, though, Dave? Ultimately, the Browns are responsible for this. They couldn't have expected help from anybody. They deserve their fate. When you're sitting at 7-8, you don't deserve to be a playoff contender anyway. And, the fact that the Browns lost 6 games by 6 or fewer points, that's the problem, not the other teams winning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take it a step further. They've beaten one playoff team. That would be the Cincinnati Bengals. 1-5, 1-6 against playoff teams, depending on who makes playoffs in the AFC. All right, can you think of a more disappointing Browns season in recent memory?
You know what, Dave? Honestly, since '99, when you couple the expectations with the so-called talent on the roster, and again, I say so-called because I just can't believe it's as much as people said or as we thought it was. When you add that to the expectations, and then even on top of those two things, the Stefanski era getting underway, having a year under its belt to establish the culture of winning, I can't think of a more disappointing season since '99, other than maybe, I can't remember exactly how we were feeling after 10-6 that didn't make the playoffs. What was that, 07? And then after Butch Davis's playoff appearance in 2002, the following year when they were 9-7 the previous, I don't remember exactly how bullish we were on the Browns. I think that the 10-6 no playoffs was more of a flukish type of thing with DA and all those touchdown passes. So honestly, I can't recall a more disappointing season. You'd have to go back to the 3-13 that followed the third of the 4-year AFC championship appearances in, I believe it was 1990, the 3-13 that followed that third AFC title game before, I could think of a more disappointing season.
Yeah, and again, a lot was expected. The rankings for the roster, everybody was all in, and it just didn't turn out that way. All right, Browns are out of the playoffs. Here's a question. Would you play Baker Mayfield with the Browns? There is nothing at this point to gain. Would you play Baker Mayfield?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Dave. I wouldn't play him. As soon as the Chargers game went final, I would have scheduled Baker Mayfield's surgery for him. I would have said, Bake, you're done for the year. Presumably Mayfield will be the QB1 next year, barring some, miraculous dropping in of some unbelievable quarterback that we haven't heard of. And that means I'm not counting on A-Rod or Wilson or even Watson. I wouldn't want Watson for his off-the-field stuff. But as far as Baker, I would have said, no, you're done. The only people you would get upset would be, let's see, the Ravens, who cares if they're upset. The Colts, who cares? And by the way, all they have to do is beat Jacksonville and they're in. And then, the winner of the Raiders-Chargers next week gets in. So it's not like a situation where other teams are absolutely positively dependent upon the Browns playing their A game against the Steelers. And you have nothing to prove if you're Baker Mayfield. You could only get hurt more by the Steelers defense. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but I don't want Mayfield to get injured somewhere else on his body. So repair the left shoulder, let the leg and the knee and the foot and all the other stuff heal, and say, all right, Bake, get ready for next season and, sit out the remaining two. And by the way, not just Baker. I would sit some other guys. Jarvis, he's done enough for me. I don't need to see any more from Jarvis. Kareem Hunt is a guy we mentioned in the pre-show meeting. Dave, you did. I think that's a great call. He should sit. Chubb, if he wants to sit. Miles has done plenty. He's not like he's chasing any record right now. So I would sit some of the A-listers who've been there for you pretty much all year.
All right, Steelers still do have a slight chance at making the playoffs, so there is something on the line there. How much does that motivate the Browns to try to knock the Steelers? I mean, is there any motivation in that?
I guess, but again, the point is that if the Colts don't go to Jacksonville and beat that sorry excuse for an NFL franchise, then the world is going to spin off its axis. So the Colts are going to beat the Jaguars, and they're going to get in. And barring a tie between the Chargers and the Raiders, that winner will get in. Those are your only two spots left in the AFC. So the Browns could say, oh, yeah, we want to play spoiler to the Steelers all we want. But the realistic aspect of it is it's not going to matter. Even if the Steelers win, they're not getting in, okay? So that shouldn't be the motivation. The motivation should be whoever wears of the Browns uniform tonight and whoever plays in the game should want to beat the Steelers regardless of their record, regardless of what else is happening around Pittsburgh, specifically Roethlisberger. That should be the principal motivation.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAM News Radio 1100, 106.9 in Iger. Step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll continue to talk Browns, getting ready for the Steelers on Monday Night Football. We'll dive into Baker Mayfield and take a look at free agency. Browns don't have a lot of guys up. We'll show you exactly where they rank with upcoming snaps by guys that will be free agents at the end of the season. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine and too late at night. But feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns and Steelers will kick it off about 4 hours in Pittsburgh at Heinz Stadium as Monday Night Football with the Browns and the Steelers. ESPN's Get Up had the game predictions for the Browns against Steelers. Let's listen to who they're picking tonight.
But I gave the Steelers, though. Nobody asked me, and I picked the Steelers anyway.
We did that on purpose,
bro. Nobody. Zach did not ask me. It's on my production call. Y'all didn't ask me in the production meeting. What if I was gonna pick the Browns? But I wasn't, though. I got the Steelers.
Okay.
Rex, go. I gave him that. Make sure you give RC the Steelers. Yeah. The rest of us are taking the Browns. And why? Because you can't stop the run. Pittsburgh can't stop the run, and really Cleveland runs the ball.
It's Ben's last home game.
Yeah, okay, so what? Cleveland doesn't care. They're going to run the ball down their throat, in my opinion.
That makes me hesitate for a second.
Come on,
I'm the same. Go ahead.
I'm going to say Cleveland. I have no idea why I'm hesitating.
Never.
It's welcome in the D-man, Dennis Manoloff. And D-man, if it were that easy, the Browns would be a playoff team if they just decided to run the ball down everybody's throat like they're projected to.
Yeah, all the Steelers have to do is stack the box, and you know what that means. The Browns panic. I'm surprised Ryan didn't say, well, let's see, if Baker plays, the Browns are going to lose. If Baker doesn't play, the Browns are going to win. But you know what? And let me go back to something I said in the previous segment about Mayfield. I would have shut him down, but I fully expected Baker to say, hey, I signed up for a full season. I'm going to play. So, yeah, you knew he was going to answer the call. As far as, if it was that easy, the Browns would do it every game, run the ball down people's throats. The Ravens made sure that it wasn't that easy in Baltimore, and a critical loss for Cleveland. Other teams can stop the run. The Steelers defense says to itself, well, gee, you guys are picking the Browns to come into our building with playoffs out of the picture for them. And we have already had our way with Baker Mayfield this year. And let's see, we held the Cleveland Browns to 10 points in Cleveland, despite the fact that they were going to be able to run all over us. I don't think the Steelers are worried at all. I think they look at this and go, all we need to do is get to 17 and we'll win, especially with Roethlisberger as pumped as he is. So I think the Steelers win this game easily.
Yeah, I'm not sure the outcome just yet. But I don't think it's going to be as simple as line up and run the ball all over them. For whatever reason, the Browns had trouble running against the Steelers here in Cleveland. Nick Chubb only had 61 yards rushing. They just seem to understand the scheme a little bit better than most teams and are able to shut it down. All right, let's take a look at this tweet. So, since the Browns cut Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield touchdown passes to wide receivers, 3. Odell Beckham Jr., 5 receiving touchdowns. And Dennis Manoloff, I'll take it one deeper. OBJ's most important touchdown reception was almost yesterday for the Rams, as he had the go-ahead touchdown against the Ravens. That would have been his most important touchdown reception for the Browns. But alas, the Chiefs did not do their part. But it just goes to show they're finding a way to use them in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Dave, and you know what? It wasn't a touchdown, but that 4th down snatch catch right before that was almost as good as anything we saw from Beckham as a Brown. So, Odell looks reborn as a Ram. He would say he's back to his old self. I do find it interesting, Dave Bacon, that suddenly all of those physical ailments that were hounding Odell, that were my shoulder, my knee, my they're all gone, aren't they? Isn't that amazing when you go to La La Land or Inglewood?
Maybe
and
it's
all of a sudden you got a healthy Odell Beckham Jr.
Sun and warm weather. Sun and warm weather. Sun and warm weather of L.A.
Dave, how did he pass the physical in the first place? Remember, he was old bag of bones, and you guys don't understand. I got a torn rotator cuff for years. And then he's out there in L.A. snatching and grabbing and running. But here's the thing. You do have to sit here and go, I see. All right, Dave, you and I, we know Kenny Rhoda coined it, OIC only in Cleveland. Because other cities, other teams have instances happen that are crazy, but nowhere do they happen more than in Cleveland professional sports. That's why it's OIC. It's not for one specific incident, but it's for the compilation. This is part of OIC. Only in Cleveland do the Browns acquire Odell Beckham Jr., have him not be a transcendent player, have it be so bad that in, year 3? Yeah, year 3 with Odell, he says, you know what? I want out of here. And then, at least privately, without saying anything publicly, sulks, gets it to a point where it's conduct detrimental to the team. They lock him out or they throw him out of practice. And eventually he gets moved, not to some junk team, not to some garbage team, but to the LA Rams. Well, I mean, he didn't get traded. I know that. But, he got cut and cleared waivers. But he winds up playing for the Rams. So we have to look at him while he's going to the playoffs, catching touchdowns. And we're sitting back here in Cleveland going, where are the touchdown catches by anybody? That's OIC.
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. We talked about, and it's hard not to be disappointed by this season, the way it's gone for the Browns. But the Browns roster is set up to be good for quite a while. Let's take a look at this graph from Pro Football Focus. This is what NFL teams are set to lose by the value of their free agents. So in other words, offensive snaps from pending free agents. And the Browns are second to fewest snaps by pending free agents. Philadelphia is the least, but then it goes the Browns and the Lions. So, and again, Dennis, we've already talked about, we think this roster is really good, and it's set to be together for a while. They got to figure out the quarterback position and get better quarterback play.
Yeah, the pesky little quarterback situation. But, Dave, I will say this. You and I have disagreed respectfully a little bit about how much talent is actually on the roster, because we were told about how much there is. I think you believe there's a lot more talent than I do. I think it is a quality roster, but I'm not over the moon, because I'm sitting here looking at it going, well, very realistic. You go into the offseason at 8-9, because I think you lose in Pittsburgh, but then the Scribinis play each other in the final week against Cincinnati. Maybe you scratch that one out. I think you're 8-9 or potentially 7-10. At that point, I think all bets are off. I don't think you sit there and you go, well, it was just one of those years and we were snake bit by injuries and illnesses. We'll be back better than ever with the same crew. I think you got to take a long look at every aspect of the organization. It doesn't mean you panic. It doesn't mean you knee jerk, but it means that you evaluate every single thing and you go, okay, for one thing on the field, were the guys that we thought were playmakers actually playmakers? Okay? I mean, going into the year, we were thinking, Hollywood Higgins. He's a potential playmaker with Baker, because he's Baker's security blanket. Well, Hollywood disappeared. Jarvis Landry, another year under his belt in the NFL, a quality player. But is Jarvis Landry a game breaker? No, he's not. He's not a superior receiver anymore. He's a quality guy. You win with him but I don't think he's a transcendent player. So that type of thing, and I didn't mean to pick on Hollywood and Jarvis, but I was just talking about receivers, just receivers alone. Then you go to another position group and another, and you say, all right, are these guys really as good as we thought they were? And then, of course, the coaching staff has to look in the mirror and go, did we put these guys in the best position to succeed? The answer to me would be a resounding no, Dave, because with 6 games lost of 6 or fewer points, a lot of that to me is on coaching.
Yeah, I would. I'll give you the wide receiver group. That's a glaring one that needs an upgrade. But I think when you look at it, the offensive line is young and they're good. Your running backs are young, they're good. On the defensive side of the ball, I really like the cornerbacks. You've got Myles Garrett. You do have to, Clowney coming back would be good. You need to. I love JOK. So your first 2-round picks, I think, are sustainable future All-Star, Pro Bowl type players. So I think the talent is there, but there is a void. And your point about wide receivers, I agree wholeheartedly with. That was the biggest miss, as far as grading this roster. They didn't play with the way you need wide receivers to play in the NFL.
Yeah, they need an explosive capability with the wideout. And I know they'll say, well, we had Odell, but he didn't want to be here. Well, one of the reasons he might not have wanted to be here, if we really want to reflect on it and be honest about it, is because the system and the quarterback. I mean, that's very possible. It was easy to dump on Odell. I was one of the people who did it. Oh, me, Jay, prima donna. But when you look at the results that he's having in L.A., and you go, well, maybe something was going on where the quarterback wasn't looking his way enough, or the system, the scheme wasn't allowing Beckham to do what he does. That's entirely possible. I'll tell you this, Dave. After what we saw on New Year's Day, is there any chance that C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba can possibly be eligible this April, and somehow the Browns can steal both of those guys? What a combination that is, huh?
Territorial rights. We'll go back to the dark ages of the NFL.
We get all Ohio State quarterbacks and wide receivers.
There you go. Territorial rights. We're reinstituting that. The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will dive in more to this Browns-Steelers matchup coming up in about 3.5 hours. We'll hear from Mike Tomlin on the Browns offense when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Browns and Steelers getting ready for Monday Night Football in a few hours. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin talked about the challenges of facing this Browns offense.
On the offensive side of the ball, man, we got to stop the run. Nick Chubb, Hunt, and what they're able to do in the run game provides a catalyst for some other things that they do extremely well. I think Baker's play-action passing game and rhythm passing is always challenging. If we want to minimize some of that stuff, it starts first and foremost. We're working to minimize the run. Man, Nick Chubb is awesome. He's got great vision, contact balance, and patience as a runner. He's a tough tackle. He's not given enough credit for his second and third level running. Oftentimes when he gets in those spaces, man, it's Katie bar the door. Very rarely do you see him get run down, but you don't ever hear him mentioned in terms of breakaway speed. But his video is his calling card. We understand that. We understood that last time. We were able to put together a solid game, at least in terms of minimizing that component of it. It's going to be critical this time around, probably doubly so. And so, we're preparing with an edge. We expect those guys to be preparing with an edge. It's all roads lead to Heinz Field this weekend, and we're honored and excited to be in this game.
And D-Man, you can be sure that the Steelers are going to do a lot of what they did last time against the Browns running game, and it's going to be important for the Browns to be able to run the football.
You would think, the Steelers' defense against the Browns, other than the wild card game last year when a lot of freaky things happened, turnovers kind of hurt Pittsburgh in that game. But the Steelers' defense doesn't worry about the Browns' offense typically, especially under Tomlin. And with Roethlisberger under center, they feel pretty much invincible against Cleveland, other than, as we said, that wild card game and a couple other outliers. I barely even count the one last year in Cleveland where Rudolph almost beat Cleveland. But, the Browns, you would think, would need to run it. But here's the thing that makes me a little nervous, though. How dependent should the Browns be going forward on Nick Chubb? Because, Dave Bacon, we saw this weekend what position elevates teams to playoff status. It's not the running back. Sorry, it's a quarterback. You got to have a legit stud quarterback if you're going to be doing things in the regular season to get to the playoffs. And then once you get to the playoffs, you really, really need a stud quarterback. Joe Burrow comes to mind. I mean, you see what he did the last two games against Baltimore and Kansas City, 900-plus yards, 9 TDs, no picks, is insane. So, or was it 10? But in any event, the Browns need a really good quarterback. And so, yes, I love Nick Chubb, and I love his cereal, and he's a gamer and everything else. But I wish we were talking about how dynamic the quarterback position was.
All right, time for us to take a look. Steelers.com, this is their playbook with Merrill Hodge. And this one is how the Steelers on defense deal with some of the Browns' schemes and plays on offense. So here's Merrill Hodge looking at the Browns' offense.
Everybody notices the second play, but not this one. I want to show you this. This is the last drive of the game. The Cleveland Browns are going to run what we call a counter play. Guard's going to pull here, tight end's going to pull, and they're going to get one of the best backs in football potentially clean in the secondary. But I want you to watch Highsmith here. I want you to watch how he plays this run and how he saves the day on this third down play. On this play here, they do a little zoom motion. Well, here's those blocks I was telling you about. Okay, it cannot be blocked any better than this. You have a gaping hole and a canale. Fitzpatrick may be your only guy that has a shot at stopping this, except Highsmith. Now, he didn't widen it here and hang, but once he saw it, he caves inside. Look what happens. He chases this down from the backside. Now, you tell me, Chubb in the open area, I am telling you this, that's a first down at least. This is a tackle for a loss because of a great play. On third down, keep in mind, he makes a beautiful tackle. Now it's third down.
And D-Man, those are some of the things when Kevin Stefanski and the offense talk about there's yards there we just didn't get. Those are the type of plays that the defenses are making in some instances to shut down the Browns' running game.
Yeah, I love seeing Merrill Hodge doing his thing. But, yeah, the backside backers, I mean, the Steelers are famous for them. Guys who come from the weak side, if you will, and chase down the playmaker, the guy who's got the ball in his hand. So it doesn't surprise me. You've seen it from Mike Tomlin's Steelers defense year after year. You got the aggressive edges, and those guys on the backside are constantly running. They seem to run a lot more laterally than they do looping around, especially when they see a handoff.
And the flip side of that is you'll see some of the reverses with probably Anthony Schwartz tonight. That will be to make sure that you keep those weak side players honest, if you will. All right, last time against the Steelers, Chubb, 16 carries, 61 yards. Is it the Steelers being familiar with the Browns' running game? Is it the scheme? Is it the play calling? What do you think it is?
Well, to me, it's a combination of them, and I hate to keep going back to the old bugaboo, but when your quarterback situation is as unsettled as Cleveland's has been this year, when you had, when you had the trouble with Mayfield's had the trouble that he has, what happens? The other team can laser focus on the running game. You saw it at Baltimore with Chubb. You saw it, in Cleveland against Pittsburgh, and other games where the opposition just dared Baker Mayfield to beat him over the top. And in fairness to Baker, the receiving core, they probably looked at the receiving core and said, "We're not scared of them either. So good luck trying to beat us over the top. While you're trying to do that, we're going to take Chubb out of the game." The old, Bill Belichick scheme. Make sure you take away the strength. And, Belichick dominated the Browns too with whatever the Browns were trying to run back there. So it isn't just, the scheme. It isn't just the play calling. It can also be the fact that the quarterback position needs to be better. And if the quarterback's better, that takes pressure off everybody else.
Let me ask you this: do you throw the ball more on first and second down so that you're not, having to throw the ball in third and long? Then is that kind of the way how do you work around it?
Yeah, that's a good point. And if the Browns throw the ball too much early down, we know what social media does: run the football, run the football. And here's the other thing too, Dave, that's hilarious. Do I think that running has a place in the NFL? Yes, I do. Do I think that running has a place in college football at the high level? Yes, I do. But remember the T-shirts that the Michigan Wolverines were wearing into their CFP semifinal against Georgia? Run the bleeping football, or whatever it was, run the ball. How did that work out for them? Okay? When you go up against quality fronts, when you go up against good defenses, it's a whole lot easier to talk about running the football than actually doing it. And in this case, you have to have, in my mind, if you want to win, you've got to have a legitimate passing attack. So I don't have a problem with the Browns throwing in early downs. And regardless of what people say, they should have run the ball. They should have run the ball. I'll go ahead and attack them through the air first and then see what happens.
The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll flip sides of the ball. We'll take a look at the Browns' defense, the Steelers' offense. We'll hear from Mike Tomlin. Take a look at what the Browns will need to do against Ben Roethlisberger in his final home game. Sports for CLE. You'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Couple hours, Browns and Steelers will kick it off in Pittsburgh Monday Night Football. Mike Tomlin talked about what he sees from the Browns defense on the tape.
We know them, they know us. It's getting tight. For us, starting on the defensive side of the ball, you better start with Myles Garrett. We can't allow this guy to wreck the game. It's a big game. It's Monday Night Football. You should anticipate him being the catalyst for their defense, and so we understand and respect that and what he's capable of. You saw it a couple of weeks back with a sack, fumble recovery score. When this guy does that, the climate that's within the stadium changes. And so it starts there for us. I think also a significant addition that wasn't available to him last time we played is their young, talented inside linebacker, Jeremiah, out of Notre Dame, number 28. He's a sideline-to-sideline guy. He's highly instinctual. He's a very good cover guy. He's good versus tight ends. He provides quality depth for them in terms of some sub packaging They don't always have to go dime in an effort to cover quality people down. This guy's coverage ability allows them to stay nickel and thus stouter versus potential third down runs and so forth. He's a challenging addition that wasn't there the first time we played him. They're a fundamentalist group. I got so much respect for Joe Woods, their coordinator, and how they go about business. They specialize in minimizing big plays in both the run and the pass. They try to capitalize on turnovers. They got some ball-aware guys I'm sure that you guys are all highly familiar with. I can't say enough about Denzel Ward at corner. This guy's been a ball guy since day zero. He's always tough and competitive against us.
And Dennis Manoloff, you see the coach there with a veteran move. I didn't want to say Owusu Koromoa, so he's just Jeremiah. So, but what do you think that since that Patriots game where the defense didn't stop him at all, they have played like a defense that is ready to play on a team that's going in a deep playoff run? The defense has been really good, I think. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, Dave, Mike Tomlin continuing to pull pages from the Lou Holtz playbook, shower praise on the opposition. I hate to break it to Browns fans, but I'm pretty sure that Tomlin does that with every single team and every single roster. He pulls out all these great players, and he loves talking about. He could probably make it sound like the Jacksonville Jaguars are a 10-win team, and Urban Meyer is a great NFL head coach. But his point about the defense, the Browns D, you're right, Dave. I mean, I'm glad you raised it. For too long, Joe Woods was the easy mark. You know, whenever the defense gave up a drive, get rid of Joe Woods. And I was one of those people who kind of said, well, hold on a second. I don't know that it's Joe Woods is the problem. Now, there were a couple times where his defense did fall apart, but I wasn't as easily, predicated. I didn't sit there and go, oh, it's Joe Woods, it's Joe Woods, it's Joe Woods. It was interesting, too, when the Browns were blowing games, Stefanski was somehow above the offense, but Woods wasn't above the defense. Woods was always blamed when the defense screwed up, but with the offense, it was, well, it was Baker, or was this, or was that. Wasn't necessarily Stefanski. I found that to be odd. But the defense overall has been pretty decent, I think. I don't know what Pro Football Focus says. That's all that really matters with the Cleveland Browns. But their defense, it's a bend but don't break type of mentality. They don't blitz as much as some of us would like. But you know what? They have limited the opposition. They've done things that were good enough to win games. I mean, you think about just the Steelers and Ravens losses this year, 15-10 and 16-10. If you would have told me going into those games that the Browns would only need 16 and 17, I would have said, sign me up. So the defense, for the most part this year, has done its job.
Yeah, minus, the first 3 or 4 games they didn't play well, and then that Patriots game. But again, look at this defense. I mean, cornerbacks, you have Denzel Ward, you have Greedy Williams, you have Greg Newsome. You need guys that can cover in today's NFL. Those are guys I feel pretty good about covering. You have Myles Garrett. I want to see more of Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. One of the guys who had a pretty good year was general manager Andrew Berry. What do you think about that? This is just kind of off the top of my head. When I think of the guys that have brought in, I can't argue with them. It has been a lack of the players getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Dave. The first 2 draft picks for Cleveland this past draft, Newsome and Owusu Koromoa, I think those guys are good pieces that have, the potential for really high ceilings. We'll have to see, but as of now, you like those picks. And some of the other guys they brought in, one of them that I'm scratching my head on is John Johnson III, because I'm wondering how good John Johnson III actually is. He's been playing better after that lull, but is it Johnson not being able to do what he normally does, or is it the system that's kind of hampering him a bit? So I wish I would have seen a more dynamic player in John Johnson III, because that's what I thought the Browns were getting when he came over from the Rams.
Yeah, I would agree. That is a very valid point. Are they using him? They're using him differently than they did in Los Angeles, and is it a mismatch with his skill set? I guess that's, they were using him more when they brought him in. Yeah, he plays near the box and he's more of a linebacker type, and he can play, a light linebacker. Well, they were using him in center field, and are you just asking him to do things that aren't best suited to his skill set?
And I think that's where some of the Johnson frustration has laid. I think he's saying, look, I can be a playmaker at the line of scrimmage if you allow me. But, again, we're not privy to those behind-the-scenes conversations. But, yeah, overall, General Manager Andrew Berry did a solid to good job of putting together a defense this year. Because remember how really bad the defense was last year. So in one off season, it's hard to expect him to totally revamp the defense. But all things considered, I think he did a pretty decent job of it, yes.
Yeah, I would agree. We're going to step aside, take another timeout. We will return to talk more about the Browns, dialing in on the game Monday night tonight with the Steelers. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns and Steelers getting ready to get after it. Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh. D-Man, I've been doing this since the 80s, and something just doesn't seem right with the Browns this year. Really since like the 5th or 6th game. I can't really put my finger on what it is. Did you have the same sense, or is that just me kind of reading too much into it? It just seemed like something was just not quite right all year from about week 5 on.
Yeah, Dave, I hear you, and I had a similar feeling. I look back at the Browns season and that game in New England when week 10, I believe it was. The Patriots just publicly humiliated the Cleveland Browns. Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels just destroyed them, took their will, stomped on it, did everything you could possibly do. Similar to what the Patriots do to other teams, including the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday. They love to just bury you. But here's the thing. I thought coming out of that game that the Browns would have sort of a revelation within their building, and they would say, you know what, we just got owned by the Patriots, and Belichick and McDaniels might have been trying to do us a favor, a blessing in disguise, showing us what's wrong with what we're doing, okay, on offense, defense, and even special teams. Instead, I don't think the Browns used that victory as a reflection point and say, you know what, we need to make some changes here. Not sweeping, but we need to change things. And we need to do things differently. I think they doubled down on what they were already doing and said, well, we believe in our system. This was just one bad game. We ran into Belichick and McDaniels, and they were on their games, and we were in Foxborough, so we're just going to slough it off as nothing. It was just one of those things. They should have used it as a learning experience because they got exposed for all their weaknesses and all their flaws, and instead we saw, similar stuff the rest of the way. Obviously not getting blown out like Belichick did, but just not quality work. And to your point about something being off, I never thought I would feel this way about the Cleveland Browns this year in particular. But when they had first down at the 50 against the Green Bay Packers, when all they needed was a field goal to win, admittedly, new kicker, and, he had missed an extra point, you're nervous there, and you're thinking maybe they have to get a touchdown anyway. But the point is they were down 2 at Lambeau against A-Rod and the boys. They were first and 10 at the 50. And you know what, Dave? I had no faith they were going to win the game. And that was stunning to me. I didn't believe they were going to win the game. Normally, I'd be like, oh, you just get a first down and you have a miracle field goal attempt. Anything after that is a bonus. I wasn't even thinking they were going to get 10 yards to get into a miracle field goal attempt. So for me to think like that, it was because this team has had something missing all year, and it's up to them to figure out what it is.
Yeah, and if you want to look even a little bit deeper, teams, you would think you would get 1 or 2 wins in the fourth quarter almost by accident, just because you're an NFL team. And continually, they just couldn't get it done in the fourth quarter with the game on the line.
I mean, I don't know exactly what the Lions numbers say, but I would submit, I'm guessing, the Lions actually played better in the fourth quarter against quality teams than Cleveland did. I mean, you can even think about one of the victories, Dave, 14-7 over the Vikings. The Browns were desperate. I mean, they desperately needed to make that a 2-score game. It was 14-7, for however long, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't even close a game that they wound up winning with any kind of an offense. So their fourth quarters were just really problematic on the offensive side. A lot of that is the quarterback, and, obviously some of it's got to be the play calling too with Stefanski, but I really do believe when I say, they need to find out the answer to what was missing. It's no secret in the NFL. If you have a quality quarterback, if you believe in that quarterback, then that belief can take you a long way. Think about the Bengals. Think about Burrow. That team just believes that Joe Burrow, no matter what the deficit, is going to lead them back. And 28-17 against the Chiefs, oh well, we can overcome that because we have Joe Burrow. There was a while where I think the Browns felt like that with Baker Mayfield, but it didn't last long enough. And it certainly wasn't the case this year. So they have to, I think it all starts, as far as personnel, as far as players doing it, it's got to start with the quarterback. They have to get a quarterback who can make them believe that they're not out of any game. It's probably going to be Mayfield again next year that's going to have to do that. But he's got a long way to go to get to that point again.
Yeah, I again, the quarterback, you're absolutely right. Ball is in his hand every snap. So, and that has to be a guy that everybody looks at and believes. All right, real quickly, let's take a look at tonight's game. What do you see as keys to this? What do they need to do to get a win? First and foremost, they got to take care of the football. You can't have turnovers.
Yeah, well, first they have to be mentally ready to play. I mean, they have to get this stench of a season out of their heads, knowing they're not going anywhere but home after next Sunday. They have to get motivated to play Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh without the part of the motivation being the playoffs. They have to, as you said, not turn the ball over. But then the whole Roethlisberger final game thing, you say, well, there's a lot of emotion there, and eventually they'll settle in and start playing. But I think that part of it, though, is going to be Roethlisberger wanting to go deep because he's very capable of throwing deep. So I think he's going to want to throw deep on more than one occasion. And therefore, I think Browns cornerbacks need to be on high alert because it wouldn't shock me at all if the Steelers try to go vertical as much as they can.
Yeah, and he is likely to throw interceptions as well as touchdowns when he throws deep. So I would agree. And the other thing would be running the football. All right, we're going to step aside, take one more timeout. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Cavs off to a pretty good start. They have finalized a trade. We'll have that as well as an update on Isaac Okoro's condition. The D-Man and I will return talking Cavs here on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Cavs off to a good start. They will host the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This caller talking Ben Simmons.
Hello, this is Timmy, a.k.a. Little Dog. I'm looking at you guys' story about replacing Ricky Rubio. I really honestly think they should explore, maybe go get some street ball players. So go get a YouTube player. I don't know. That would bring in a market. They should sign Ben Simmons. I keep trying to tell people he's not LeBron, but he's the closest thing to LeBron. And if the Cavaliers can learn from what they did with LeBron and deal with him, I mean, you gotta. Also even look at Kyrie. I mean, shoot, Cavs got to stop being scared to see what changes that we can do. Other than talk about it, there's been plenty of obvious opportunities. We could have signed Donovan McNabb years ago. Like, it's just Cleveland got to stop being scared and start keeping up. We're the new Hollywood. And I think that Baker is a good quarterback. He reminds me of Drew Brees, honestly. I just feel like he's like a Drew Brees, Doug Flutie, John Elway type of player. Like, he's tough. Like, letting ball. Just getting some better plays.
All right, we appreciate the voicemail. D-Man, there's a lot to unpack there. We'll stick to the Cavs side of it. I was intrigued by Ben Simmons. I think he is so counter to what they're building at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. The talent is definitely intriguing, but I would think that's probably not an avenue that Kobe Altman wants to go down just yet.
100% agree. First of all, credit the caller, the voicemail of Truth and Reason, packing a lot of punch into one call. And as you said, a lot to unpack. But regarding Simmons, you can't just sign Ben Simmons. You have to extract him from Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia 76ers ownership and brass are dug in with Ben Simmons. Just ask Clutch Sports about that. They are not giving Ben Simmons away. They're not even coming close to giving him away. They are demanding a king's ransom. They're treating Ben Simmons as though he is LeBron James. And by the way, Simmons dreams about being as good as LeBron James is, okay, in terms of the overall game. So you're not going to get Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia unless you give them a ton. And it really is a defeatist proposition if you're the Cavs, given what you built to this point, to all of a sudden unbuckle that and say, yeah, you know what, we're going to go all in on Ben Simmons. What point does that make? I mean, for starters, I would guess if the Sixers were even going to entertain it, they would go, all right, well, right out of the gate, we want either Garland or Jared Allen, or Garland and Mobley. And then you're going to have to throw in, this guy, that guy, and a couple of first-round picks. No thanks. I'm not saying Ben Simmons can't help a team, but there's a reason why he's still on the Sixers. Because the Sixers have said, you're ours until we say you aren't ours. You are not going to force your way out and get your way. So I don't think Ben Simmons has ever been realistic, especially for a team like the Cavs, who are on the rise, who are doing it the right way. This is not the time nor the place, nor would you want to give up the capital to get Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I would agree.
And here's the other thing, Dave. You can't just have guys get injured. Key guys like the Cavs have. Rubio on top of Sexton, and then Garland be ill. You can't automatically expect you're going to overcome that right away. Because that's very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, and along those lines, the Cavs did update Isaac Okoro, who was injured last night in the game. He is out 2 to 3 weeks with that elbow sprain. So he's got to rehab and go through that. So they're approximately 2 to 3 weeks. And D-Man, they've done a really nice job of weathering all of the injuries. They lost Sexton. You had the guys on COVID. They haven't had Garland. So credit J.B. Bickerstaff and the Cavs. They're young, but they're finding a way to adjust on the fly and win games.
Yeah, I love the Cavs. I love everything about them. Incredible job this year, given the circumstances. Think of all the adversity, as you mentioned, they've already faced. And we're not even at the All-Star game, which is in Cleveland, by the way. And let's keep our fingers crossed that everything will go well there, given how COVID is raging. But, it's remarkable what Altman has done, what J.B. Bickerstaff has done, flipping this culture from one season. Actually it was 3. The first 3 post-LeBron 2.0, which was all about rebuild, wandering around, losing a lot. And all of a sudden this year, the expectation is winning. The expectation is playoffs. And when that expectation truly gets tested, Dave, is when you have adversity. Okay, it's easy to say, yeah, we want to win. And when things are going well, we are winning. But when you start losing guys, can you hold the fort? Can you hang in somehow, some way? And yeah, the Cavs have lost, a decent number since they've had these injuries and illnesses, but they've also won some games. So they're hanging around despite this unbelievable adversity. Dave, I can't remember one season with the Cavs where 2 guys were sidelined with elbow sprains. Where did that come from all of a sudden? Why is that happening? Okoro after Mobley, 2 elbow sprains? What? But yeah, once again, the Cavs are going to have to deal with being undermanned, but I trust Altman and I trust Bickerstaff to keep it level until they get most of their guys back, and then they can, make their push.
And they did acquire Rajon Rondo, so that trade has been finalized, part of a 3-team deal. The Cavs will send Valentine. He ends up with the Knicks, and they pocket some money. So Rondo's a 16-year NBA vet, averages 10 points, 8 assists for his career. He is 4-time All-Star, 14th all-time in career assists, 4th most of any active player. I really like the fact that this is a guy that's a veteran point guard, can run the offense, is a guy that, that again, Darius Garland can kind of pick his brain and get some of the, the finer points of playing point guard. I just like the trade. They didn't have to give up anything. When Garland comes back, he's the backup, and you hope that he can run the offense and settle things down much the same way Ricky Rubio did.
Yeah, that's true, Dave. You are getting the name Rajon Rondo more than the player, because his best days are long gone. But I get your point, though. He was languishing on the Lakers bench, not doing anything. That's why you were able to get him on the cheap. Yes, he's ornery, and yes, he wears out his welcome in certain places. but you would think that it's been clear what his role is, and he wouldn't have agreed to this if he wasn't on board. And you can move on from him after next season if things or after this season if things don't go well. But yeah, I'm okay with Rajon Rondo as a stopgap, as a defender, and I say he can be a little snarly and whatnot. I don't mind that on the court. I certainly don't. I don't mind a guy who plays with an attitude as long as the individual doesn't become more important than the team. And I think Bickerstaff will get him to buy in to the team concept, and Rondo will do a good job as a stopgap here for the Cavs.
Yeah, and again, they need something to settle that down and allow that young core to develop again. D-Man, we're out of time. As always, D-Man, appreciate it. You can listen to him, WTAM, News Radio 1100, 106.9. D-Man, as always, thanks for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
All right, Browns getting ready for kickoff in a few hours with the Steelers. We will see you again tomorrow. 4 o'clock schedule guest, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We'll have plenty reaction and insight into the Browns-Steelers game tonight. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports4CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.